How are you, dear students? Our lesson today will continue with three dimension shapes, pages number 785 and 786. Let's start this video.
The essential understanding for this lesson is three-dimensional shapes have attributes that define them and make them different from one another. Previously, students used attributes such as the number of vertices, edges, and faces to define three-dimensional shapes. In this lesson, students extend this work as they examine attributes that do and do not define a shape. This problem is key because it requires students to consider which attributes define a cylinder and which attributes do not. Listen and look for students who don't recognize that the figures are all the same kind of three-dimensional shape. Some students may say that these are different shapes because their colors, sizes, and positions are different. Remind these students that three-dimensional shapes can be defined by the number of faces, edges, and vertices they have. As with two-dimensional shapes, three-dimensional shapes are not defined by attributes such as color, size, and position. To encourage students to think about the attributes of three-dimensional shapes, ask guiding questions such as, how many flat surfaces does each shape have? How many edges? How many vertices? What three-dimensional shape has these attributes? Listen and look for other students who explain that the figures are all the same kind of shape, a cylinder, because they each have two faces that are circles with no vertices or edges. Some of these students may also point out that, although the shapes have different colors, sizes, and positions, they are all cylinders. These students understand that three-dimensional shapes have some attributes that define them, such as the number of vertices, edges, and faces. They also have other attributes, such as color, size, and position, that do not define what shape they are. Understanding the attributes that define three-dimensional shapes will help students as they compose objects using three-dimensional shapes.
So, with our first question here, circle the words that are true for each shape. All cubes have 12 edges, have 8 vertices, or cannot roll, or are blue. So all cubes have 12 edges here, excellent, and have 8 vertices, or cubes have 8 vertices, and all cubes cannot roll. With another question, all cylinders have two flat surfaces, or cannot roll, or are red, it's about color here, or can roll. So our answer is have two flat surfaces or can roll. So we would choose here to have two flat surfaces and can rule. With another question here, Kevin wants to build a wall. Circle the 3D shape or shapes he could use to build the wall. Here you can choose any shape here. For example, I'll choose here cube and rectangular prism. That's for example that's simple shapes which are circled to build my wall. Okay, with another video.
Are these all the same kind of 3D shape?
Let's find out!
How are these shapes alike? They all have 6 faces, 8 vertices, and 12 edges. How are these shapes different? They are different colors and sizes. They are also in different positions. We define 3D shapes by the shape and number of faces or flat surfaces and by the number of edges and vertices. How can you define a rectangular prism? It is a shape that has 6 faces, 8 vertices, and 12 edges. Are all of these shapes rectangular prisms?
Select your answer.
Yes, they all have the traits needed for rectangular prisms. Why are these shapes not the same kind of shape? One shape has no flat surfaces, some have no vertices, and some have no edges. The flat surfaces on one shape are rectangles, and on another are circles. Color does not define shapes. Just because shapes are the same size or color does not mean they are the same. These shapes are all green, but there is a rectangular prism, a sphere, and a cylinder. Color does not define shapes. What is each of these shapes? How do you know? Each of these shapes is a rectangular prism. All of the shapes have 6 faces, 8 vertices, and 12 edges. Are all of the rectangular prisms facing the same way? No, they are not all facing the same way. Are all of the rectangular prisms the same size? No, they are not all the same size. Does size or position determine if the shapes are rectangular prisms? No. Color, size, and direction don't define a shape. Some things about these shapes are different, but they are all rectangular prisms.
So another question here. Do all cubes have the same number of edges? All cubes have the same number of edges? Yes or no? Explain or draw a picture to show how you know. Of course, it's yes. Why here? That's 6 cubes here. All of them have 12 edges. The blue one or the green or the yellow or red. So all cubes here have 12 edges. Another question. Steve said that both of these shapes are the same because they both have 6 faces and both are purple. Do you agree? Do you agree with Steve? Of course, no. Why? The cube has 6 square shapes faces, but the rectangular prism don't. And color doesn't matter here. We said before, color don't define the shapes. So they are different. One of them is cube and another one is rectangular prism. With another question here, and the last one. Match each shape with the words that describe it. First one here, rectangular prism. As rectangular prism has 6 equal faces, or 1 vertex, or 8 vertices, or no flat surfaces or vertices. Excellent. So here, rectangular prism has 8 vertices. What about cube? We have here 2 properties of cube. It has 6 equal faces and 8 vertices. What about sphere? Sphere, no vertices, no edges, and no flat surface. What about cone? Cone has just one vertex. Just one vertex. Dear students, don't forget our homework. Pages number 787 and 788. See you tomorrow.